Hey everyone, welcome back to my seed starting room. So today I have a long list of seeds that I'm hoping to get started. I'd like to get my peppers done, my brassicas done. I have a bowl of ranunculus corms that have been soaking overnight, so those definitely need to be planted today. And then if there's time, I'd like to start my snapdragons, but I think that's a lot to do in one day, so we'll see how far I get. But yeah, let's get started. Before we get into the new seeds, I thought I would give you an update on the seeds that we started a few weeks ago. So here we have the ginger that we started together, and this was about 2 weeks ago now. And you can see that there's a couple shoots that are already starting to grow. These two pieces that you can see in the video were those large pieces of ginger that I started, and then the two little pieces that broke off were in this corner and that far back corner. So when I checked the ginger this morning, those two little pieces that had broken off were actually starting to go bad. One piece had mold on it already, and the other one was like really, really squishy. So I just took the pieces out of this tray and threw them in the garbage because I don't want those pieces to grow bacteria and mold that then spreads to my healthy ginger rhizome. So I just took them out, and I have a couple pieces of ginger that I soaked overnight. So you can see that this is fresh ginger. It's soaked because it's been in water overnight. And you can see that there's really nice little eyes on the tips of the rhizome, which is perfect. And I'm just gonna plant these pieces in their place. So I just planted that one there, and then I have two little pieces that also have some nice eyes on them that have been soaking overnight. And I'm just gonna plant these here as well. And I think that this is gonna be plenty of ginger for us. And then I'll give this a little water. But I will say that doing it this way with the whole rhizomes seemed to work a lot better than the technique I used last year. So if you don't remember, last year I cut up a large piece of ginger into multiple small 1 to 2 inch pieces. And then I left those overnight to kind of callus the spot that I had cut. And then I planted those 1 to 2 inch pieces into 4-inch pots. And it took like maybe a month, maybe even longer than that, for the few pieces that did sprout to actually sprout. And a lot of the other pieces, I would say maybe 80% of those pieces just ended up rotting. So the fact that I have shoots within a couple weeks, these two pieces of ginger, the larger pieces, feel very firm still, and the fact that they're growing shoots already and they grew them so quickly is giving me some hope that I'm actually gonna get ginger this year. So this is how I'm gonna be starting my ginger going forward. So far, so good. And then here I have all of our artichokes, which are looking really, really good. And then if I move over here, I have all the onions. So the Rosa di Verno Rubino, these are the red onions, and you can see that these pots are quite sparse. So I just filled them up with a few more seeds last night, so hopefully these pots fill out a little bit more. But other than that, they look pretty good. The first thing I'm going to tackle today are my ranunculus corms. I went to Costco yesterday and I bought this bag of ranunculus corms for about $19.99. It comes with 100 corms, which is pretty amazing, and they're a really pretty color assortment, as you can see. I have grown these last year and I did get flowers from them, which was amazing. So I feel like this is a really nice beginner-friendly way to kind of dip your toe into ranunculus growing, because they can be a little bit tricky. So I bought this yesterday. This bag is for one of my friends, so I haven't opened this one. But I opened my bag and I soaked all of my corms in water overnight. This is what the corms looked like last night. So you can see that they're quite dry. They're really skinny. They don't really look like much, but overnight they soak up a lot of the water and they really plump up. And this is what you want to plant. This kind of awakens them from their dormancy. And then these ones would still be dormant and really hard to wake up if you just planted this in soil. So now all we're gonna do is just plant these in some trays, and I'll show you exactly how I do it. I start my ranunculus corms basically the same way that I start my ginger. So I take a seed tray like this, I fill it about halfway up with soil, add my ranunculus corms, and then I'm going to add some more soil to top them up. So I'm just going to get this seed tray filled. If you've never grown ranunculus before, they really are beautiful flowers, but they can be tricky to grow. I watch a lot of like flower farmers starting their seeds and their corms, and listen to flower farmer podcasts, and they do say that ranunculus can be one of those tricky plants. So just keep that in mind, which is why I think getting a bag for $20 for 100 corms is such a good deal, because if things go wrong, then you only spent $20 and you got 100 corms, so you have 100 chances of getting things right at least once. So I have my tray half filled here, and now all I'm gonna do is take my little ranunculus corms and just stick them into the soil like this. And usually I can plant this entire 100 corm bag in one tray like this, and I'll leave them in here until I'm ready to plant them outside. You want to make sure that when you're planting them, that you're planting them with the legs facing down. Now that they're all planted, I'm going to cover them with soil. And now I'm going to give it a little bit of water. So I finished planting my ranunculus. They are now on my seed starting shelf. And I'm not going to put them on a heat mat because ranunculus don't like heat. And I'm not going to worry about any lights for right now because there's nothing sprouted yet. But once they sprout, I'll make sure that they go under some lights. These are going to stay in here until the soil warms up outside. And I'll probably plant these out around the same time I plant my potatoes and my carrots. That seemed to work really well last year. If it does get super cold and we're going to get a really hard frost, then I might just cover those ranunculus. But considering I planted them around the same time as my carrots and potatoes last year and they did okay, I'm not too worried about that. So yeah, these are done. I'm gonna leave them for right now, but I will label these after to make sure I remember what they are. And then now I think we're gonna do some brassicas. Last year I planted all my brassicas in soil blocks and that seemed to work really well. So I think I'm going to do it again, which means I need to get this soil a little bit more hydrated. For soil blocking, if you've never done it before, you need your soil to basically stick together when you squeeze it in your hands. And this is wet in some areas and really dry in some areas because this soil was really dried out when I opened the pack when we started seeds a few weeks ago, and I hydrated it then, but then it dried out again. So I'm gonna get this soil nicely saturated and then we can start soil blocking. I will say that a few years ago, I posted a video on a soil blocking soil recipe where I mixed coconut coir, worm castings, regular soil, and vermiculite or perlite, one of the two. And then I kind of made my own soil mix for seed blocking, and that worked really well. I can add the video in the description of this video if you're interested in making your own. But last year I tried using this Pro Mix soil that's already pre-made and just using this as my soil blocking soil, and it actually worked really well. Like the blocks held up pretty well considering that it was like a pre-packaged soil. So I think I'm gonna do that again because it just makes it a lot easier. I don't have to go out and buy the ingredients that I need to make a soil, and then I have to continuously go out and buy all of those ingredients when this bag is pretty cost effective. So I'm going to add some water to this and get this soil to the consistency that I need it to be so that we can start soil blocking. You don't want it to be too wet because then it just ends up being like a gloppy mess, but you do need it to be damp enough to hold its shape. just gonna give this a little stir and make sure it gets nicely incorporated. Don't judge, but I did not clean my soil blocker at the end of the season last year, so it is absolutely filthy. But if you are not familiar with soil blocking, this is a soil blocker. This is a 2-inch soil blocker, so it has 2-inch soil blocks, or it makes 2-inch soil blocks. And there's 4 of them, so every time you press down, it'll make 4 soil blocks in a row. They have these little inserts here, which you can change out depending on what you are planting. And these little indents here, or these little pieces here, will create an indent into your soil block so that you can either put in a smaller soil block, which is what these ones are for, or there's little like dimple ones that will just create like a little divot on the top of your soil block. Unfortunately, I do not know where those ones are. So I'm just going to use these ones for right now, or I guess I could just take these out completely, but I'm scared I'm going to lose these ones too, so maybe it's best I just keep them in. And then I put my soil blocks on these trays. These I just got from the dollar store. I will say that these ones aren't ideal because they have the little holes for your hands. So when you're bottom watering, the water tends to kind of run off outside of these trays. So they're not ideal, but I bought them and I've used them for the last 4 years and they do okay. You just kind of have to be aware of the fact that you can't fill them up too much, which is kind of nice too because you don't want to overwater. So it's kind of a reminder not to overwater my soil blocks or my plants in soil blocks. So to use the soil blocker, all you do is you put it in, and then I kind of use the sides of my container to push the soil into the squares. And then I just use my hands and push it in. I actually might have added too much water to this soil. Feels a little oversaturated right now, but that's okay. You just really want to push in the soil blocks to make sure that they're really compacted because that's going to help keep their shape so that even after you water your soil, they won't fall apart, which is really important because you don't want to go through all of this effort to make your soil blocks, and then as soon as you go to water them, they just turn into one giant piece of soil. So I usually do this a couple times just to really make sure that they're nice and compact. And then I clean up the bottom and the sides. Then I take my tray. I don't know if you can see, maybe I'll do it on this side so you can see a little bit better. Take the tray and then you just push down on this top loop while holding the bottom. And then you get 4 lovely soil blocks. So this is going to take me a while. I'll just finish this whole tray and then we'll get to planting. Okay, I have all my soil blocks made. I have 30 in total. And now I just got to figure out which brassicas I actually want to get started today. So let's go through my little seed container and see what we have. Okay, so I have all of my brassicas in here and I have 30 soil blocks I can start today. Well, of course I can make more, but we'll see how far we get. So I'm just gonna go through these and see what they say. So for this farro cabbage, it says for early and main season variety, start indoors 4 to 5 weeks before transplanting or direct seed after danger of frost. So I could potentially just direct sow this, but I feel like it gets so warm in the spring here that I have to start this early. So I'm gonna start this 4 to 5 weeks before my transplant day, and I can transplant cabbage at the same time as my potatoes and carrots, which I did last year around April, end of April. I think I can hold off on these ones a little bit longer. or do I just want to start them with everything else? Okay, this is going to be a maybe. These Asperbrock broccolini are the ones I grew last year. These ones I'm for sure going to start today because those ones need to be started now. I have this Conan kohlrabi. So this one says to direct sow. So this one I'm not going to start today. Then I have this Green Magic broccoli. This one says to start indoors in late winter or early spring. So I'm going to start this one today. And then we have, I guess, some other varieties. So Brussels sprouts take a really long time. So I'm going to start these ones today, even though it says to start them 6 to 8 weeks before our last frost date. And I'm about 12 weeks right now. I'm going to start these anyways because they take so long to mature. And I'll plant these outside at the same time as I do my other brassicas. I just want to give these as long as possible to grow. So I'll start those ones today. These dinosaur kale. Unfortunately, this package doesn't have a start date, but I will start these ones. These I started probably the same time as my other brassicas, and they did fine. These are actually one of the only ones that kind of withstood the pest pressures that I had last year, so definitely gonna grow these. And then these cauliflower I've had for years, and I haven't had much luck with them, but I have the package, I have the space, I might as well try growing them. This package of bok choy I've had for quite some time too. These ones say to direct sow, so these ones I won't start today. And then this pak choy says to direct sow as well. So it looks like I'm only going to be starting Asperbrock, the Green Magic broccoli, the Brussels sprouts. This variety is called Catskill, which is an heirloom, the dinosaur kale, and the early snowball cauliflower. Actually, I changed my mind. I am going to start a few of these farro cabbage. I feel like I can start some now, and then I can also sow some in a few weeks and just see which ones do better. So in that case, what I am going to do is I'm going to have 6 varieties of brassicas, and then I'll have my 6 columns, and then I'll do 5 plants per. And what I like to do when I'm soil blocking is I have my tray here, and I always have a piece of tape in the top left corner. And that is basically how I figure out what is in each soil block. So this is always in the top left corner. And then I usually place, I know you can't really see in the photo here or in the video, but I'll place my seed packages along the bottom like this. And then I'll take a photo of this kind of orientation so that I know that this first column is the Asperbrock broccolini. The second column is the Green Magic broccoli. Third column is the brassicas, and so on and so on. And that way I don't have to label each soil block because, as you can tell, it would be really hard to keep each one labeled. You could, of course, put little pieces of tape along the edge, but I find that they kind of get in the way or they like unstick themselves. Having a photo is just nice, but I will say that if you end up potting these up into new containers, you do have to be more careful because, of course, each soil block is not labeled. So you have to make sure that you are labeling or paying really good attention to which soil block you're putting into your new pot. I will also say that all of my trays are different colors too, so I don't really have to label the trays themselves. I know that the red ones are going to be the brassicas this year, and this is the top left corner, and then everything else kind of falls into place. Because I couldn't find the other attachments for my soil blocker, the holes within the soil blocks, I don't know if you can see from there, are quite big. So all I tend to do in this situation is take a little bit of soil and just kind of fill in that hole slightly, just so that I'm not planting my seeds super deep. Okay, so this is now, my soil blocks are now ready. So first up I have my Asperbrock broccolini. So these I did try last year and they did okay. Brassicas in general in my garden did not do super great just because I had such bad pest pressure. But they grew well at least, which is half the battle, I guess. But yeah, the flea beetles got them in the spring, and then the cabbage moths got them in the summer and going into the fall. So I didn't really get a ton of brassicas to eat. I did get 1 or 2 florets of this Asperock broccolini, and they were good. So that's why I'm trying them again. And then this year I'm going to be growing all of my brassicas under a little mini hoop house, which I'm really hoping will prevent any pests from getting in. So I'm actually able to harvest some brassicas. The same thing happened at my last house. I had really bad pest pressures, and then I grew everything under a little hoop house in one of my raised garden beds, and that was one of the best brassica years I've ever had. I had so many Brussels sprouts, I gave them away. I don't think I got any heads of cauliflower, but I did get a few heads of broccoli. And then my bok choy that I grew was just, there were so many. I was like outside picking bok choy every day and adding them to like soups and stir fries and stuff, and that was really, really nice. So I really liked that, and it worked well. So I'm going to be doing that in this garden, but it'll be in ground instead of in a raised bed. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so that was the Asperock broccolini, and then this is going to be the Green Magic broccoli. This variety says that it's perfect for summer harvest because of its hybrid resistance to bolting, which is nice because it does get really warm here in the spring. Our spring is like a very short season. It seems like it goes from winter to summer really fast. So having a variety that's resistant to bolting is really nice. Last year, I will say, I did have, of course, I had the pest pressure, but then I also had a few plants that just went to seed really, really early in the year. So hopefully this will kind of help stop that from happening. And I will say I'm putting 2 seeds per soil block, and then I will thin them out once they germinate, just to make sure that I get 1 plant per soil block for sure. And then next up I'll do some Brussels. Last year my Brussels sprouts, I want to say that they fared probably the best against the pest pressure, but it was like the growing season wasn't long enough for them. So they were just starting to kind of get to the size that you want to eat before it was time to put the garden to sleep. So I didn't actually get to eat any. Plus, I will say that the cabbage moth caterpillars really dig themselves into, or I guess eat themselves into the Brussels sprouts, so that even if they were the right size, I'd like open one up and there was just holes from being chewed in. And the last thing I want to do is bite into a Brussels sprout that's wormy. Doesn't sound like a great time to me. So yeah, hopefully this year we get some more Brussels and they're not full of bugs. Okay, next up I have the dinosaur kale. I'm not the biggest fan of kale personally, but I think that these look so cool in the garden. So it's mostly for the cool factor as of right now, but I have tried a few really good kale recipes in the last few months. So having my own kale to recreate those recipes will be nice. I feel like I've had this since I started gardening. It's been that long. So it's probably the last year. So this is the early snowball cauliflower. I think I've gotten cauliflower once in my entire growing experience, and I think I waited too long to harvest it, if I'm remembering correctly. So when I was watching it and babying it, and then by the time I went to actually go pick it, it had already started to flower. So I didn't actually get to eat it, unfortunately. But I did get one, which is pretty exciting, but I don't think I've gotten anything since then. And then this sparrow cabbage is going to be the last one here. So yeah, I'll start a few seeds of this now and then see how they do, and then maybe start a couple more in a few weeks and we can compare. All right, so these are done. I'm going to put them on the seed starting shelf. I'm not going to put them on a heat mat, and then I'll put them under some lights, and then hopefully in a few days, maybe 10 days, we'll see some sprouts sprouting. Okay, so the brassicas are done, ranunculus is done, so I am going to plant some peppers today too since I have time. In no particular order, I'm going to do the Greg's Grande jalapeno. Been growing these for a few years. They're not the greatest producers in my garden or in my experience personally, but they do produce really big jalapenos, so that's why I like to grow them. I'm going to do these piquino peppers, piquino little peppers. They're very cute. I have actually grown these a few years, but I've never gotten any peppers from them. So here's hoping that this year is the year. So I think this year I'm going to try growing at least a few of my peppers in my raised garden beds. I haven't actually planned where I'm planting everything out yet. I won't be able to plant or grow all of these in my raised beds because they're kind of taken up by other things. But when I grew peppers in pots a few years ago, this was at our last house, they did really, really well in pots. And I've heard from someone else that grows peppers commercially that growing peppers in pots is like the way to go, or raised beds is the way to go. So I'm going to try to plant some of these in my raised beds, and this is going to be one of them for sure because I really, really want to try these peppers. They're so cute. I've heard that they make really good like little fridge pickles, little fridge pickled peppers. And they're just like a little adorable peppers that you can throw into salads and stuff. So I really want to try to successfully grow these this year. So those ones I will put into my raised beds for sure. I'm going to try these Sugar Rush Peach peppers, California Wonder. These are another one that I've tried to grow for a few years and I just don't have very much success with it. I did get 2 peppers. I don't think it was last year. It might have been at my old house. I had 2 small bell peppers on the plant, but they did not turn red because our season was so short. So I'm going to try them again. And maybe this is one of them that I'll try in the raised beds as well, just to see if they do better than in the ground. These ones are black Hungarian peppers. I'm going to try those. There's obviously no photo there, but... And then I have 2 packages of shishitos. These I've grown, love shishito peppers, one of my favorite peppers to grow, so I will definitely grow these. And then I have the Black Magic jalapeno. So the reason why I'm growing these ones in Greg's Grande is because these ones actually look very similar to the jalapenos that I get from the farmer's market, which are the ones that I use to make cowboy candy every year. And I'm hoping that if I'm able to grow these successfully here in my own garden, I might not have to go out and buy them from the farmer's market. And it says right on this package that these are highly productive. So I'm hoping that this holds true and I'm able to grow these in my own garden. I probably will put these ones, maybe the piquino peppers, or at least a couple of them, and the shishitos and the California Wonder in my raised garden bed. But like I said, I haven't actually planned my garden yet, which is wild because it seems late. Usually I have this kind of drawn out by Christmas time, but I have so much space and I'm just going to grow as much as I can. But these are going to be the last variety. So I'm going to do each variety in a 6-cell pack like these. And then I have 2, well, I guess I have 1 extra, which will be for the shishito. I'm going to grow 12. I'm just going to start planting some seeds. So I'm going to start with these Black Magic jalapenos. And I'm just going to do 1 seed per pot for right now. And then if I notice that one hasn't germinated, then I'll just stick another seed in. Just because some of these don't have very many seeds in them and I don't want to waste the seeds by planting 2 seeds per pot and then having to just weed one out, or thin one out, I should say. I'm gonna label these. I'm not gonna cover them yet, like the actual seeds. I'm just gonna leave them so I can see which ones I've done already. So next I have shishito peppers. Like I said, shishitos are one of my favorite peppers to eat. They are so good fresh. All I do is I take them, I put them in a pan with oil, get the oil really hot, get the pan really hot, and then I just blister them, take them off of the heat, sprinkle some coarse salt on top, and just eat them just like that. They are so good. My husband and I just eat them like as snacks throughout the summer. One of my favorite peppers to grow, and they usually do pretty good. I've even grown these in my arrow garden actually, and we actually got quite a few from the arrow garden, which was cool because then we were eating shishitos in the middle of the winter that we had grown ourselves. Obviously, when they're in the arrow garden, you're not getting as many or as many at one time as you would when you have plants going outside. So we would literally heat up like 6 peppers at a time and have 3 each. But it was really nice because it was at the dead of winter, so having something that you grew yourself in the dead of winter is still pretty cool. So next up I have black Hungarian peppers, and this seed company, Matches Seeds, actually sent these seeds to me for free earlier this month. So I'm very thankful for that, and I'm excited to try these seeds out. I'm gonna do 6 of these as well. Okay, so I'm gonna try these California Wonder peppers. I think I'll have just 6. Yeah. Oh no, I have 8 here. 2 more left. I'll leave those for next year. Okay, next up I have Sugar Rush Peach. These ones, I had one really good year, but I won't name names, but someone picked them a little bit too early, and they were grown in pots that year. So maybe this is one of the ones I'll also put into my raised garden bed, because they seem to do really, really well in the pots that I had them in. It was absolutely covered in peppers, but unfortunately they were just picked a little bit too early. And then next we're gonna do the little piquino peppers. Just in case anyone else is intrigued by these peppers, they say these highly ornamental plants form a canopy of dangling fruits above stems just 50 centimeters tall. They look great in containers, named for the little beak or pointed tip. Enjoy them raw, cooked, or pickled. And they do require 100 days, so it's good to start these ones early. And I'm really, really hoping that I get some seeds, or sorry, some peppers from these ones. I might do 2 per pot for these ones just because I really want to increase my chances of getting some of these peppers this year. And then yeah, last but not least, well I guess last and least, we have the Craig's Grande Jalapeno. And now I'm just gonna use the end of this label here to stick the seeds in. You want to plant them about 2 times deeper than the width of the seed. And you just want to make sure that they have good contact with the soil. That's the most important. And this is the same soil that I used for the soil block. So the soil is actually quite wet at the moment, so I'm definitely not going to water these at all. I'm just going to let them dry out a little bit. All right, so I have all of my pepper seeds planted, and I'm actually going to move these artichokes that we started together a few weeks ago down to this rack here, and then plug this heat mat back in, and then put my peppers on the heat mat. Once things germinate, you don't want them to be on the heat mat anymore. So that's why I can move these artichokes, because everything has germinated for the most part. All right, so today I finished planting the ranunculus, the brassicas, and my pepper plants. And it is pretty wild to see already how full my seed rack is. But that was a big chunk of the things I wanted to start today. I'm not gonna start my snapdragons yet. I'm gonna hold off on that. I can start them next week. But yeah, that's it for the day. All right, well, if you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. I hope you have a great week in the garden, and I will see you next time. Happy gardening.